So even on a Sunday, when church attendance is down, I suspect some of it, as some of you were saying, because of spring break, again, in my calling, attendance is up, and that's a good thing, because for us to both get to know each other better as brothers and sisters in Christ, and to understand, as the preacher tried to say something today about how we are each called to serve in God's world, that all the families of the earth might be blessed. It's good to learn about some of those different ways that God calls His people to serve. Today, Scott Patterson will be sharing about his calling. Scott is fairly new to the congregation, as some of you know. Joined, was it last May?
Yeah.
She joined. Got to know Amy, Scott and his mom did, when she was living at the Shores, and she passed away
In October.
I was thinking it was warmer than that. Anyway.
It was warmer in October.
It was warmer. And we're very pleased, Scott, that you're with us in the congregation and with us today to share about your calling. Scott is when you get an email from him, it says sales engineer at Sensata Technologies in White Bear Lake. So, Scott, we're all yours. Thank you.
It's an over-glorified title. That's really all it is. So back in the fall, Bob and I were talking, and he asked me to do this today, and at first I didn't know really what my calling was or what my calling meant. So of course, like everybody, you Google it, and after I read a little bit about it, what is my calling? You know, my calling as far as just being here or being alive or my whole life. And I guess it came down to everything, and it came down to one word. I guess where I've worked, what I've done, and every time I've had a job, every time I've done anything, it's always been in service to someone or something, and I guess it's all of my jobs, and I've even thought about it too. Where I work and where everybody works, I guess we're always in service of someone, something, and I guess that's my calling. So
I'll buy that.
okay.
One. And that's a tough sell.
Okay. Should we vote?
We'll expand on that later. I guess to start, I'll give you a little background about myself. So I grew up I Googled it, mapped it. I Google everything.
We noticed.
Well, I think everybody does whenever.
If we can think that.
Yeah, but a lot of times you'll hear a word or something, and the first thing you'll do is get out, well, what is it? It's amazing. When we were little kids, we had to run to the library, and now it's everything's at your fingertips.
I love it.
So, but I grew up 1.5 miles from here.
Oh.
So I grew up right over on Cottage Avenue by Prosperity Playground. So I grew up lived my whole life on the east side, and so I went to Prosperity Heights grade school, then Hazel Park, and then graduated from Johnson. So, and after Johnson, I went to, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I remember my mom, and it was in the fall after I had graduated, and she finally came and got me out of bed one morning. Said, you better make up your mind. And I kind of had some ideas what I wanted to do and whatever, so I just drove out to what was called Lakewood at the time, or now I think it's Century College, and I signed up there. Well, I went there for 2 years, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So then when I was finishing up there, I thought, well, I always wanted to go into electronics. And I looked at the school over in Minneapolis, but it seemed like it was just so far away. And I, we're on the east side, I didn't want to leave. So finally I figured, well, I wanted to go into electronics, so I checked that out. So I went there, got a 2-year electronics degree, and graduated from there because I like to fix stuff. I always kind of tinkered around and everything, so that kind of led to my career. So, but basically, my career, I'll start off by boring you with a whole long synopsis on that. first job was a paper boy. And my dad didn't like me doing that because he didn't think it was right that I had to go around and collect. He thought the company should really, the worst thing was, is you'd knock on 20 doors tonight, and about 18, 19 would pay, no problem. But there was that one guy, and he stiffened my little kid, you know, and that just bothered my dad. And finally he said, get out of that job. So I did. So then, my first real job was up at the Best Steakhouse.
Really?
Still there?
Still there.
The one on White Bear?
Oh, I thought you meant, am I still there? No.
No. The Best
Yeah,
Steakhouse.
just on Thursdays, but, no, it was back, so if you were in there in the
Back late 70s?
late 70s,
Yeah.
when Jimmy and Artie, I don't know if you,
I can't remember the names, but I know, I remember my kids were, so oldest was born in 72 and she was pretty young, so you know.
That
Yeah.
was the one off of Johnson Parkway?
no, the
No,
one just right up the street
Right
on
on
Larpenteur and
Now
White Bear.
India?
Oh, okay, Taste of India, no?
Yeah,
I didn't
Taste of
know
India,
that was.
yeah. that
No,
was-
the Best
oh,
Steakhouse.
okay.
You're thinking Mr. Steak.
Oh.
I think that was Mr.
Yeah.
Down by Larpenteur?
Larpenteur and White Bear.
That one is,
I think it's this
that
way.
one's
Quite that way.
isn't it?
Is it that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're confusing
You
people.
got the shades on. So I worked there for a while, and then
Now, do they still sell beef steak, or is it just steak?
It's the best steak.
They don't say
clarify.
Oh, I don't know. Well,
100%.
when I worked there, I remember, I think it was Tuesdays, they literally got the sides of beef in,
Mm.
and they had a
Oh,
big banner on
really?
the back.
They
and-
didn't whinny when you cut it open.
No, there's no wool on the ground or, but they would actually cut all steaks right there and marinate them and put them in the tubs, and we'd put them in the fridge.
I didn't know that.
But I was more of a busboy of
Yeah.
stuff back then. So I worked there for a short time, and then I caught a break. I was with my dad one night, and we went up to a friend of his house, and he said, what are you doing, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he said, you know, Bud across the street runs that Goodyear up there, and he's looking for a guy to change tires. So we walked across the street, knocked on his door, 10 minutes later I had a job. Didn't know how to change a tire, didn't know how to, I didn't even have a car. So, but that, as I'll expand on later, that kinda,
Connections are always good.
yeah, so that was a big connection, and that, actually, that step there led to me kinda getting into the job I'm in now. So it was a big, kind of a big,
Faith.
yeah, fate there that night, just an oddball night, just happened to be with my dad going to his buddy's house and happened to meet somebody. So I worked there for a long period of time. Worked at that when a few of tires put on up at that when it used to be a Goodyear. I worked there back in the late 70s, early 80s. And then,
Where was that at?
on Van Dyke up by what used to be Shopper City,
Okay.
then Builder Square. I think it was Builder Square
Yeah,
most of the time that I
yeah.
worked there.
Where the plaza is and the
In the church.
church.
It's in the church
We
now.
call that Builder Square a church,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the name of it either, but,
Woodland Hills.
Woodland Hills Church is
Woodland.
where the Maplewood food shelf is, and that's where we connect with Merrick with the jet fuel program.
oh, okay.
So they're our friends.
So,
But
And
you
I
can't get
learned-
plywood there anymore.
yeah. But I learned a lot at that job. I guess, you know, I learned not only how to fix cars and be mechanical and things like that, but that's where I was when, they wanted to send me to school to be a mechanic. And I thought about it, and I thought, nah, didn't want to do that the rest of my life. So that's part of what led to my decision to go to electronics. But the other thing I learned a lot of too at that job was, my dad's friend's neighbor was running the place. Well, every couple of years, Goodyear would take the store managers and kind of move them around. So, okay, the guy working here now worked in West St. Paul. The West St. Paul guy now moved to Brooklyn Center, and that guy moved to, you know, so they shuffle them. Well, then, the guy we ended up with turned out to be not the best guy to work for.
Oh,
And I never really thought I would butt heads with anybody, but with that guy I did, and everybody else did. And a lot of the mechanics and the service managers and the sales guys, all of a sudden, he would leave for that store, and they'd transfer over to this store. And part of my job is to run parts and run tires around other stores or pick up stuff. So I worked there for a number of years, and then this happened, and then I realized, well, I guess if nobody else wants to work for that guy, I don't either. So as I got running around to these other locations, I started putting the feelers out, and the guy said, yeah, we'll take you. So I ended up moving over to the Midway store. So, well, and I'd worked there for a while, and then I heard they got rid of the manager up there because nobody liked to work with me. So, but I learned a lot there just about how to deal with people sometimes that were difficult to deal with, and that's kind of helped me a lot in my last few jobs. So, any questions? So that was about the time that I graduated from electronics school and was out looking for a job. And then I took my first job I got offered was in sales. And I thought, well, I don't want to sell stuff, I want to fix stuff. So I turned that job down, and then took another one over at an office supply company, because it was running around fixing office machines. And I took that job, and I worked there for 15 years. And I loved that job.
Are those the guys that you call when your copier breaks down?
Yep.
And you want to put a cot in the room so they can stay there forever?
That's why I quit that job.
They're never there when you need them.
Yeah, or you open
get
it and
attached
it
to
falls
those
on
guys.
you.
Perfect. And that was another service job. And I liked that job because back when I started, we used to fix stuff. We used to fix it right down to the circuit board level. You know, if it needed a new transistor or resistor, we'd fix it. If it needed a new this or that. And then we'd run all over town. The territory I had towards the end was Wisconsin. I drive as far down as Rochester. And it was a lot of wind chill time, but it was just a lot of good time. And I really liked that job because you really got to know a lot of the accounts and the people that you had. And it was a lot of fun. But the one part that I didn't like about it was you here again, is this thing broke? And then you're always walking into kind of a negative situation.
Oh.
So I made sure when I went to a different job and we had a copier and the guy came in, I always treated him really well. Yeah. Well, I knew what he'd probably just come from or whatever, so.
They didn't have a cot, they had a couch.
Yeah. Oh, improvement, yes.
We had a pull-out for him, so. But I had troubles at that job too. My manager I would only spend about 15 minutes a week in the office. I'd just come in to drop off my paperwork, pick up parts and everything. And it seemed like he only had you for 15 minutes, so he's gonna pick on you and I just got tired of the guy. Well, eventually, they got rid of him before they lost too many people. So, but it's a kind of an odd theme that just dealing with some.
Probably back before supervisory training was
Yeah.
implemented.
Yep.
Yeah, and all people are different, I mean.
Yep,
We're
they
gonna
are.
encounter that with anything, I mean,
Just
in
look at
nursing.
Porter, he's really different.
Yeah. Imagine if he was my boss.
That's a party. You'd love it.
Or you leave.
But I guess that's, one thing too about your work life is I've often heard it described as that the company would be perfect if everybody was like me. And then one guy told me, he said, no, actually you don't want that. He said, you really need the entire mix of personalities and work ethics and,
Yeah.
because you can always say, well, he doesn't work hard and he works way too hard and he does a sloppy job, well, this guy does a great job, but you need all that. You need the whole mix of people to make things work. And of course, it's nice too when you have issues because everyone has a little different aspect or a point of view how to get things done. If we were all like me, well,
Don't
It'd be great to be really.
yeah, good thing Lori's not here. So, Okay, so, moving on. So that's a little bit about the job and everything. So, well, let's go into my job that I'm working now. I worked at what was called Wagers back at the time. They're located out in the Midway. 2 guys owned the place, real nice guys. You know, loved to work there, but the guys that were in front of me were only a few years older. So I knew there was no chance for advancement there unless I stayed till I was about 62, until they retired, and I figured, well, and I liked the job, but I wanted to do something different. So I looked around at different jobs.
What did you do there?
Repaired office equipment.
It was still office equipment?
Yep.
Okay.
Field service, so they gave
Okay.
you, it was nice, a company car. You drove all around fixing stuff, and it was went in the office about once a week maybe. And, I really liked that job. And I liked, even though I had kind of a manager that I didn't agree, see eye to eye with, but I didn't see him that often. So it was never really a huge deal. But I just knew that I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. So I started poking around and looking at stuff, and I found one job. A guy that I worked with went to this company down in Egan. They fixed bank security systems and drive-through tubes and ATMs, and he said, "Scott, come on down. It's a great place." So I went down and interviewed and jumped through all the hoops, and they called me back and said they offered me a job. And I came home, and I was telling Lori one night, I said, it sounds good, but I just something doesn't feel right. And she said, well, don't take the job, because I didn't have to take it. I wasn't in a hurry. So I thought about it, and so I didn't take the job. So then after I went to the place I'm at now, I was out having lunch one day, about 6 months later, and I looked over in the restaurant. Well, there sat the guy that had gone down there from my last job. And I thought, well, what's he doing here, dressed up? Well, the place had folded. And he was back fixing office equipment.
Yeah.
He was out running service calls and stopped at that place for lunch. I'm like, oh, thank God. So it's one thing I'm thankful for is I got.
How you're feeling?
Yep.
Gut feeling?
Yeah, just I don't know why it didn't feel right. Part of it was I didn't know if I wanted to be the guy fixing the drive-through tube in January.
Yeah, it's an outside.
I would think that's a dangerous job.
Yeah.
You get robbed and stuff.
Well, you don't really deal with the money, but
Oh, yeah.
it was just the mechanics of the tube, but it,
You're not emptying out.
no.
Well, I know you don't want your batteries to die when you're at the drive-through.
Oh, no.
But at least someone's gonna get there right away to give you a jump and get you out of there. Because they've got 5 guys behind you.
There's a bright side there.
Like a story be about me, but anyway, let's see. Well, anyway, I tried to get AAA, and I do have the OnStar program, but didn't think of that right away, and so I talked to the teller, and afterwards they said I'd have to come in and call them. Well, when you're at the drive-through, where would I put my wheelchair full? And so, well, anyway, long story short, I finally got the AAA there. Got out of there.
Was that TCF?
No, that was, Ink Bank.
Okay. Remind me not to go to them.
Carol, no one else stepped out and said, what can we do to help?
Well, there was, after a while, there was someone that asked that would like some water, and
You're a long time, you want some water?
Anyway, I'll take it from.
No, that's So then I answered an ad in the newspaper, which tells you how long ago this was, and took the job that I currently have. So what I do today, I work for an electronics company out in White Bear. It was owned by a guy that lived in Little Canada and started the business years prior, about 15 years before I got there. And I don't think he invented these, but he came out with what's called inverters. And inverters take power from a car battery typically, or a DC source, and convert it to AC power, which comes out of the wall. Most people don't know what that means, don't feel bad. It's power conversion. It just takes power from one form, converts it to another form. Our main business is fleet utility customers, so around here it'd be Excel Energy, the phone company, Comcast Cable are big accounts of ours. Anytime they have a work vehicle and they need to plug in tools or things, they'll usually buy one of our products. So basically takes power from the vehicle's battery, turns it into power so you can plug in tools, saws, laptops, whatever. And so I've been there about 20 years, worked for the guy. We do a lot of things, so anything usually with tires on it we'll provide power for. There's a number of different companies now that do the same thing. Back when I started, there was only a couple of companies that did what we did. But now there's all sorts of competition from overseas and a number of companies here. But our product is a little more durable and ruggedized. We sell a lot to the military. We dabble a little bit in the RV business, but that's kind of gone to China. So that's more of the inexpensive stuff. But now we've procured a lot of things from China, and so we compete in that market as well. But my job there is basically, again, it flops back to service. We do working with sales. My main role is basically to help out our sales guys that are all around the country, and they call on customers, and we do the technical end of it. So the guy needs to know what size unit he needs, what he needs on the vehicle for batteries, alternator, those type of things. So when he needs to run a certain load, we call it, for a certain amount of time, we have to figure out what he needs and come up with all the cabling and alternators, those type of things in order for his situation to work on the vehicle. We also dabble in, we do traffic backup systems, which we got into a number of years ago. And this started off up in St. Cloud. One of our sales guys got a lead up there. The guy kept having a power outage in his one big signal, and he wanted to know what he could do. Well, we came up with an inverter that would, as soon as the power was lost, this inverter would kick in, run off the batteries, and keep the intersection lit up. And then when when the power would come back on, the unit would charge the batteries back up and wait for the next time. So we actually turned that into a pretty good chunk of our business for a while. So.
Oh, that's interesting. It robs power from the battery, and then when it's done, it recharges the battery.
Yeah.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, and that business really took off. We're on the third generation now of product. With the brownouts and stuff had in California, we got involved with that, and we had Caltrans contract on that for years, which is a big thing. When you're Caltrans approved, they call it, you can pretty much sell to any entity in the U.S. and be considered a good product. So
your company has a factory in White Bear?
Yeah, when I started there years back, we used to manufacture the circuit boards there. We used to do all our cabling, the metal from local metal vendors or tin vendors, and a lot of the products were sourced very locally. But it was just amazing to walk in there and see all the people. People would just go, "Wow, you guys do all this here?" Because most people thought that would all come from overseas. Well, it was all, when I started there, we had over 60 people working in the factory, cranking out circuit boards and our cable assemblies and putting together all of our stuff. So then about 8 years after I got hired there, we knew that the owner of the place was getting older. He had 3 daughters, so they didn't want the business, so we knew that he was going to sell the business, and he eventually did, and that was a big change. So we're working for the small guy in the corner office that we go to lunch with once in a while, and you kind of considered him your friend. I know I've told many people this, that other than my dad, I think I've learned more from that guy than I have anybody else in my entire life. He was a good businessman. He was a good, knowledgeable individual who could transfer his information or relay it very clearly. He was not a shrewd businessman, but he was just, you knew where he stood. Matter of fact, when it was time for your review or for your raise every year, he would always have your little paper in his pocket, because when your anniversary date came up, this was gonna be your raise, and he'd come to you and he'd say, here's your increase, and he'd walk away, and I said, well, aren't we gonna have a
One-on-one.
little review or whatever? And he says, no, when I have a problem with you, I'm gonna come and get you. You know, he said, other than that, everything's okay. So we never had a review process, you knew where you stood with him. You know, he was a good, you know, so, in all of this, I've worked for some difficult people to work for, and I've worked for some bad, you know, from good people, and this guy just, he had it all. I mean, very intelligent, very successful, and now he's very successful because he sold the place, so.
Now he's living in Tahiti?
No, he's actually in, South Carolina.
Almost there.
Almost.
Well, his daughter moved down there, she's to be a doctor, and last I heard is he built each one of his kids a home on this cul-de-sac. So all the grandkids are, live in Washington.
Oh, for heaven's
So, but he can, you know, that's what he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, the other challenge with that is, of course, we got bought by a different, I'll call it a corporation, which became, of course, the first thing they say, day when they come in and, okay, we're the new owners, blah, 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 nothing's gonna change. And nothing did that day. Looking back now, you know, over 10 years later, everything's changed. Everything. I mean, it's, some of the sad things are, when we used to make all of our circuit boards there, those have been farmed out to Mexico. So those 15 girls out of work. And then all of our wires and stuff now made at a different plant, you know, those 4 or 5 people out of work. So it's just,
That seems bad, but my son just reminded me, I said, you know, about this, I'm kinda worried about global trade and not doing as much. And he said, well, those people over in China, or wherever, if they don't have the job, they're probably gonna die. So, it's like, that's all they have.
Yeah.
You know, so it kinda makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
That you're keeping some people alive.
yeah, it's just unfortunate when you've worked with people for a
Yeah,
long
that's
time.
tough. I've been through a lot of those, so.
So
Well, and
then-
it was an American-made company.
Yeah, and we used to be able to put Made in USA on our
Yeah.
product,
Yeah.
and now because we buy this part from here and we get this part from over here, you know, how much is really, it's assembled here. But that's the word too, a lot of times you look at products out there and it's assembled in USA.
Well, because,
Yeah,
but
Okay.
right.
not all in the US.
Yeah, because our cars are assembled in, you know, your Toyota's made here, your Honda,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, it's kinda, and it'll become a global economy, I think, when we start making tennis shoes here. But that's, and it probably will happen. It'll just take, it probably won't be in our
It's
lifetime.
gonna be interesting.
There was an article in the Pioneer Press this morning about Adidas
Yeah.
and bringing some of their manufacturing back to the US.
And I can speak firsthand that I think a lot of it will eventually come back because the quality of product that we get from other countries is substandard oftentimes, and if you're buying 100 of these and you're kicking 10 of them out because the quality's not there, is it really worth
For
it?
the food.
So,
Never fear.
Oh, dog food.
Scott, how does it happen if, let's say you mentioned about, the brownouts in California or the stoplights in St. Cloud, where do new ideas come from in your business? I mean, do people say to you, does a designer say to you, what kind of issues are you hearing on a consistent basis? Or does somebody just get a brainstorm, or do you have somebody who's, you know, new product development as opposed to
well,
the manufacturing, I mean, how does that work in a business like yours?
a lot of times it'll happen, we'll get a call on the phone and it'll be just some engineer at some company saying, well, I'm looking at your stuff, do you guys do something, or could you modify something this way? And if the numbers sound attractive, then you'll run it up the food chain, you know, in White Bear, and we'll see if there's a viable need. So right now, the new thing that we're working on is with a company that sells a lot into the bus industry, the RV, the fancy high-end buses. It's with lithium ion batteries.
Mhm.
Lithium ions are about 50-some volts, but then they need conversion down to 12 volts, because most everything inside a coach is still 12 volts.
Mhm.
And you're not gonna redesign all that, so now they need a high amperage, just a DC to DC. That'll take it from the 51 volt down to 12 for that. And there was a need for that, so that's been the latest thing. So, but it's just usually someone will call, and there'll be an interest, and if it looks like a viable market, we'll throw some engineers at them and hopefully design a product and maybe make a market out of it.
And is there a typical turnaround time from request to, yeah, we can ship it to you in a week, a month, or?
Well, it would be, usually a turnaround time would be a couple months to maybe a year, depending on what the product is, and if we have to start from ground up or just modify something that we have. So we have a pretty wide range of products. It's not just simple 12-volt inverters that fit in vehicles. I mean, that's our main bread and butter application. But we do stuff for steel mills that takes 250 volts DC that runs on their rail, and then converts that down to 120. And then there's substations and railroads and all different voltages for different things. So
What about frequency? Do
we,
you convert from 60 up or down?
well, no, we've always pretty much been 60 hertz. I know this is Greek to most of you, but.
Well, the old mainframe computers used to run off at 300 hertz.
Yeah.
We had to convert that from 60 to 300.
Yeah, those are highly specialized
Yeah.
things. The military oftentimes uses 400 hertz, but we don't dabble much in that. The fanciest we get is we'll do some applications for Europe that do 50 hertz.
If you manufacture for the military, do you have to be under this new what do they call it, program where everything's top secret, and if you have a visitor come to your company, he has to sign in and...
Yeah, we have that, but it's not that stringent.
I just worked with a company, Fridley, a few weeks ago, and they also manufacture for the military, and I had to bring my passport, I had to...
Oh, wow.
I said, do I need to bring my birth certificate? No, just bring your passport.
Yeah, and I guess, we do have some of those, but most of it's because we don't have real strict guidelines, because we're kind of just making a part. We're not making an end product.
But I think it does extend to
Yes.
component parts,
Yep, there is
because it becomes part of a weapons system.
yeah.
Okay.
But we'll put inverters on back of Humvees that typically go out and just do repair. We're not on a combat vehicle, so the stuff that our products get mounted on are usually out in the battlefield.
Mhm.
They're more there to come and support or to mop up and fix stuff later, run welders to fix a broken tank, track or something like that. So yeah, we do have some of that. We do have to sign in and things like that, but it's not.
Well, the reason I asked about the frequency was, Europeans operate on a higher, they don't use, 60.
220, 50 hertz.
Yeah, it's a different frequency.
50
Lower.
hertz. 50 hertz.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's why your razor won't run over in Europe. You need to get converted.
Well, I'm always plugging my computer into there.
I wonder why you have so much trouble.
Yeah, that's probably it. Because it's a higher voltage and it's a lower frequency.
Yeah, because ours is 120 volts, typically
60
hertz. Does anyone know what 60 hertz is?
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Do we need to know that?
No, you don't. I could fill this board with that. And I could even get into my algebra that I use. But it was funny last week when am I gonna use this stuff? Well, I use it probably every day. But even when someone says, well, I wanna run a pump for this long off this vehicle, well, there's X and Y, and they need to know Z. How long will it run, or what do I need for power? And so it is a practical application where you have to do math on.
What I do notice when I use my computer in Europe, my charger gets hotter
Yes.
than it would be here.
Yeah, you might wanna get an adapter.
Exactly.
I have the adapter for the plug-in, but that doesn't change it doesn't change the voltage
Frequency.
and it doesn't change the frequency.
No, you're running at almost twice the voltage,
Yeah.
the lower frequency.
Buy another one.
So is there a regulatory agency over your work with the government or no?
Not an agency, it's just basically all the requirements and they call them mill standards and stuff that we have to adhere to in order to sell to the military.
Okay.
We don't do a ton with them right now, and a lot of the stuff we do is sold through, I guess.
Other
not-
vendors?
Other vendors, yeah, we build stuff for, like Oshkosh Truck out in, Wisconsin, they make the big military vehicles, so we build the stuff and sell it to them. Yeah, I don't think, right now, we have any contracts with the military selling them direct. And then we do other products for another company who builds, products for the food systems, because they wanna be able to pull up something and run it right off a Humvee.
So you have to have a certification under UL?
Yes, UL 458. Now I'm really boring you, aren't I?
Let's talk about your family.
Yeah, that's the other part of this, you have 10 minutes.
I got one more question about the business. Is White Bear Lake friendly to your business, and the state of Minnesota friendly to your business?
Yes. I've seen what we pay in taxes, I think they like it.
Oh, thanks, that means the rest of us should be now.
Yep. Well, we're on it's odd because we're located on White Bear Parkway, which doesn't seem like, it's full of businesses. If you know where Smart Card is, we're right down the street from them and a number of other large businesses. Well, normally, in the cities, a parkway is for homes. Big trucks aren't allowed on a parkway, but we're on a parkway. But we're in a business zone or area up there. The building's, about a year old before I came there. They were located more down by Berkeley, what was Berkeley Buick back, and then even before that, when the owner got started, he was over right by the roller skating rink across 36 up here. So, but yeah, very friendly. I mean,
Jarvis.
Yep, I'm Jarvis. But yeah, very friendly. We've added on since, and we just had to basically move a pond, which was a big thing. But you have to, anytime you pave or cover land, you have to add water holding areas, and so. But to move on away from all the confusing stuff. Yeah, so a few years ago, the company that bought us, which is Sensata, Sensata is a big, they're a spin-off of Texas Instruments years back, and this Sensata does sensors. So their big corporate deal is they make sensors, and their claim to fame is they say that everyone in this room owns between 20 and 30 of their sensors. You don't know you have them because they're in your car, or in your blender, or in your toaster, in your washing machine. And especially if you buy a new car, that's loaded with sensors.
I just did.
Yeah.
My computer.
But that's how Sensata became what it is. Well, they know that they can only grow so much selling sensors, and they're buying other companies, sensor manufacturers in Europe and other ones, locally.
If you want a spin-off business, you could work on a car that doesn't need all that stuff and sell it.
Yeah, I think we're fine.
Boy, that would be great.
Yeah. But I don't know if there's too many 78 Dodge Starts left.
I'm having a lot of trouble.
So, and we got purchased years ago by this company, because they can only get so big selling sensors, so then they decided, let's just start buying companies, because they just want to get this over time. And we were kind of out of the norm for them. They're a little widget manufacturer that sells into, big corporations, and then, of course, we make an end product that we mainly sell right to a customer or through a distributor right to the customer. But they bought us because we were making money, and we've made money for them, and they just hung on to us. Well, then a few years ago, they bought one of our competitors out in the Seattle area, and that company built inverters mainly for RVs, and for solar applications. So they don't compete with us, they kinda maybe complement us. So within, probably 3 to 4 months after they bought that company, they came to our place and had a meeting, and they decided they're gonna shut us down. So everyone just, okay. And they gave us letters and told us how much they'd pay us, and you guys would be done in a year and a half. That was a while back. And we all kind of stood there thinking, whatever. And the economy here is pretty good, I think, compared to most places, so, you know, I went home and dusted off the resume and started on firing that off left, right, and doing everything I could to find a job. And things went on and things didn't move or progress much at my place. And my boss is a sales manager, he lives in Ohio, so I only see him about every 6 weeks or so. But every time he would come to the office, he'd say, hang in there, I'm gonna keep this place open, I don't want you guys to leave. And I'm thinking, you're screwed if we leave. Who else are you gonna find to do this if you're closing the doors in a year? So I thought he was just feeding me a line. So I kept looking and looking, and I got an offer at this one company. I thought, geez, what should I do? You know, I've lost enough sleep over losing my job, you know, that I've been to, and of course, with my age and everything, well, who's gonna hire me at this age? So I was back and forth with this new company, and then they said, well, we have to wait, there's a hiring freeze, we'll call you after the first of the year, or whatever. So then, we kinda thought maybe the ship would turn around and we'd save our jobs. Well, the same week that this other company got back to me and made an offer, they announced that we're staying open and the Seattle company is coming our way. So I'm like, whew, dodged the bullet the second time. I thought, I'm running out of chances here. So I thought, well, what do? Do I go to the new company or not? And then I thought, I have flexibility, and my mom was getting more advanced in her Alzheimer's, and I thought I better stay at the job I have now, at least I know what I have. So I didn't take the other job. And then, now we're in transition where the Seattle company is now coming to our place. The next couple months will be tough because we're starting to move their product here. We got an announcement a couple weeks ago that, we're gonna take their operating system and slap it on top of ours, and we'll start doing all their orders and paperwork in a couple weeks. So the business is gonna kind of double. So it's gonna get interesting here in the next couple weeks. So.
The family part?
Oh. So, anyway, enough of the job stuff. So the family part, well, I shouldn't have to look at notes from my family. So anyway, grew up on the east side. My dad passed away about 20 years ago. He had cancer. And then it was just me and my mom. I have a brother and sister who don't really keep in contact with the family much. So it's kind of just been me and my mom. And that sort of is what led me to here. So my mom sold the house over there. I got tired of cutting the grass, shoveling the snow, this and that, so she bought a townhome up by the ball fields by Goodrich, across from the golf course. And she lived up there for about, 15 years, 12, 15 years. And it was a good place for her, a lot of good neighbors and everything. But then she came down with Alzheimer's. So that's kind of comprised about the last 6 years of my life back to the service. So she needed to be cared for, doctor appointments, then all of a sudden it came to the point where she needed care, so we had and at that point it became kind of tough because she didn't want anybody to help her. She didn't have a problem. So, and I'm probably a lot of you either know someone or have been through. I don't think I've never met anyone that isn't affected by that at some point, somehow, some way. So it's kind of, but it's tough, but so eventually I moved my mother into the shores of Lake Phalen, and then that's where we came to know Pastor Amy. We did the services there on Thursday night for a couple of years, got to know her well. And then my mother fell and broke her hip, or broke her hip then fell, I think that's probably more what happened. And then, they couldn't take her back because of her advanced care. She never got back on her feet. I think she forgot that she knew how to walk after the surgery. She was pretty far along at that point. So then went through some transitional care and then eventually to pull a ridge and then passed away back last fall. So, and then and that's how I remember one night, she was up at the Ramsey Care Center in transitional care, and Amy had come to give her communion. She had come to the hospital a couple times when she was in there, and then up to the nursing home to see her when she was in transitional care. And then I realized that we weren't going back to the shores, and I wouldn't be, my mom might never see Amy again. So I asked her, I said, well, maybe we'd be a member here. And she said, sure. So that's what's led me to here.
Do you have children?
No, I've never been married. I've been with Lori now for 20 years. Lori's widowed. Lori's husband. She had 2 kids. They were about 10 and 14 years old when she lost her husband. He had a heart issue, and lost them. And I met Lori through some mutual friends a couple years after her husband had passed. And we've been together now almost 20 years.
Oh, that's a chunk.
Yeah. So, yeah, she's been a great part of my life. You know, just probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. So, wish she was here, she could hear me say that.
I'll tell her.
Yeah.
You're gonna be on video.
No, that's true.
It'll be on the web.
She can watch it on the website, yeah. Anybody can see it.
Yep.
Don't let that make you nervous or anything.
Not now.
No. Well, I'd actually thought about that when I was gonna talk about my job. I thought, I better be careful what I say, because it could come back to bite you. I know Dan and I were talking, I know back in the beginning when email started to become a way of communication at work, because years ago it was phone calls and faxes and then maybe even some letters, and then email became a thing. I actually took a little course, not a course, but a seminar on not how to type an email, but how to correspond. Yeah, because there's been many a times I'll type something and then I'll read it and go, nope. Yeah, you always look at it before you hit the send, because you can never get it back. I always get the kick when you get someone's recalled a email.
Yeah.
No, you haven't.
Never write anything your mother wouldn't read.
Yeah.
So, and then there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of, even with saying something, you know, you say it, you can never take it back. It's been said. So people won't remember it as much as an email, but or they won't have it in a record.
So your calling to service has led you all the way through your sales career. And now we are grateful you are in part of our service here.
Well, thank you.
I mean, he joined the lay ministry committee right away, and we are so pleased that it's important to you too.
Yep, it is.
So it's a joy to know that people recognize their service isn't just writing that check or being here on Sunday. It's being a part of what the community stands for.
And that's why I like it here. Lori's Catholic, and I go to church with her occasionally. She's a member out at Guardian Angels in Lake Elmore, Woodbury. And I've gone out there with her for years, and I don't know anybody's name. We come and go, and she used to know the one father there fairly well. I think it was because when she lost her husband, he was there, but then he's moved on. And I still go with her, you know, once in a while, but it's just, we see people, we recognize them, but we don't talk to anybody. We come in, she puts her money in the plate, and then we go home. We tried to go to the fish fry Friday, but it was so busy we couldn't.
How about bingo?
They have a really good fish fry on Fridays,
Yeah.
but we got out there about 5:30 on Friday, and there wasn't even a spot in the parking lot.
Oh.
So any other questions, I think? Oh, and my hobbies,
Oh, yeah.
that's at the bottom.
Another fun thing.
Yeah, well, I like to golf, I like to fish.
Uh-huh.
I have Lori and I have a camper up on a lake in Alexandria, so we're up there most weekends in the summer. So it's about 30 trailers up on a RV park near Alexandria. So
What's the name of the lake?
Smith Lake,
Smith,
you know where that is?
never heard of it.
I told you it was a small lake.
Right next to Jones Lake.
Yeah. It's Johnson and Peterson Lake.
No, it's Long Lake, it's near Long Lake.
Oh.
Which one? No,
Wrong
it's between Osakis and Alexandria.
Okay,
So if you're a fisherman, you must know where Osakis is.
yeah.
So if you
yeah.
take that road between Osakis and Alec, about 12 miles, we're 6 miles down the road.
Yeah, are you on the north side or the south side of the 94?
We're just on the north side. If you go down to the one end of the lake,
You're on the north side of 94.
we're on the north side, yeah. If you go down to the south end of the lake, you can actually see the tops of the semis as they go by. But we're up on the north end of the lake. It's about 600 acres.
Yeah, I did fish Osakis last year, club tournament.
Yep. And that's bass or
Is that a Japanese lake?
Osakis?
Osakis, you've never been to Osakis?
I've heard of it.
I've driven by it a million times.
Most people can't say it. I know a friend of mine,
Fisherman.
all the years have been going up, they'll come up, where is that, what exit is that, Osaki? No, thinking, you ought to have a
Well, I can tell you in Osakis, there's a lot of, also one of the bigger Lutheran churches in the area right there in Osakis.
Oh, you don't wanna settle there, stay
Oh.
here.
Yeah, I know a few churches in town, but not sure, I'll have to look and see which one it
There's
is.
a big one there.
It's amazing when we do travel around up in that area, the number of huge churches there are out in farm country. You know, old churches that have been well taken care of for, and, you know, a lot of old, you know, members there, so. But, yeah, we like to go up there, and then I like photography, and I like to garden. I have a big garden up there. I have a garden at home, a lot of vegetable gardening. I do a lot of canning.
Do you own the property that you're
No,
recreational?
it's a rental or lease,
Okay.
so no. We thought about buying a cabin, but there's about 30 people there, and we really like the people. And we like going up, and we thought, geez, if we bought a cabin down the lake, we wouldn't see
them anymore.
Yeah, and it might be kind of lonely.
Yeah, yeah.
And since we primarily just do weekends in the summer, it's nice because we don't have to cut the grass, we don't have to put the docks in anymore, we don't have to do all the work.
Yeah.
So it's more relaxing,
Mhm.
so.
That's smart.
Anything else for Scott? Well, I was struck by a number of things that you said today, but talking about the diversity and the advantage of diversity in a business. And I think that one of the things that this series does is help us to be aware of the diversity that there is in the body of Christ. And that is one of God's gifts to us, that we don't see everything the same, that we don't all have the same callings or the same gifts and skills. And we're grateful for the work that you do, and as Corrine said, so grateful that you're one of the family here these days. Very grateful. Thanks for today, Scott. So, next week, Dawn Mazinski will share about her calling. Dawn is a nurse in the delivery room at United Hospital, or whatever, maternity ward, or whatever, at United Hospital. After that, Trevor Tolley will be sharing about his calling. Then Diana Swanson, and saving the best for last, Pat Hagan the last week in the series. So we hope that you can stay for each of those as well. Thank you.